Now, a few months ago, I started to vibe code what I called a knowledge hub, and you might have seen like a blog post about that. If not, I can share the link later on. You can also you can basically Google it. So I thought, like, why don't we create a bit of a Glean type system ourselves using Replit and the increasingly better code gen capabilities that you can use with a system like Replit, or could obviously also be Lovable or something else. And so I built this app, was connected to Gmail, Slack, Zendesk, Atio, Google Drive, Granola, and so on. It had a vector database, a RAG engine with semantic vectors, keyword matching, had MCP servers, a Slack bot, and it sort of quickly kind of became more and more complicated in a way, maybe also more sophisticated. I went pretty deep into this rabbit hole, and after 10, 12 days or so, I sort of built this thing which consisted of tens of thousands of lines of code, hundreds of API endpoints, hundreds of commits, and it sort of worked, but it turned out to be quite painful to maintain. So in order to like continue on that path, I think either it would take somebody who just knows much more about the stuff, like a real engineer who I'm sure would be able to build that thing in a fraction of the time and make it better and like have it like more maintenance easy, or I would have to spend a lot of time on it to make it just really practical. And then I had this, I don't know, maybe aha moment, I think maybe just 6-8 weeks ago or so, where I asked myself, well, why don't I just connect all these sources directly to Claude? It is slower because Claude has to do a lot of different searches in parallel and to some extent sequentially. If it doesn't have the like a vector database that does some of the pre-processing, but it actually works pretty well. Like you use the intelligence built into the model in a really effective way. Claude is pretty good at deciding when to like call like which source. And the big benefit, which I really can't emphasize enough, that it's so much easier to build and maintain. And because of that, because most of the logic is defined using markdown files, it's so much easier to iterate. So I don't spend a lot of time maintaining it, and I spend a lot of time now improving it, really pretty much on a daily basis, probably on an hourly basis. And this is really why this thing, which we're calling our AI command center, I think that's because Claude came up with that name for itself, has become really, really powerful. Meanwhile, it's not only myself using it, we've rolled it out to our team, and at least in our investment team, everybody is now using it for hours. When I started, the idea was that it would mostly be about enterprise search, like so still like this use case, like this which I where Glean is maybe the role model. But then I figured out or tried that now that Claude has all this context, it can probably do even more interesting things than just finding information. So I kept discussing more and more deals with it, and because of all the context, I got much better answers than if you were just using ChatGPT or Claude with giving it much less context. And because it started to really learn about what we're looking for in a company, it also started to become really good at finding companies for us, using web search and a couple of other APIs. So we like one of the things that it does now, and I'm showing just a rough overview of the system, is it runs a daily scout program where it looks at dozens of companies and finds the most interesting ones for us. And this is it sort of gets already quite well what we're looking for. It took some iteration, obviously, and I expect that it will continue to get better with more and more iteration and feedback.